What's going on, everyone? Happy Sunday. So today is a very special episode. It's Sunday, August 9th, 2020, and it's special because it's Sunday, and this is my first Sunday show, so pretty excited here. Anyway, just going to go ahead and look at some music today with some good English expressions. We're going to focus on some new popular music that I've been hearing on the radio a lot, and I'm going to try and break down a few expressions for you. I'm also going to speak a little bit in Spanish in this podcast because I keep saying it's a multilingual podcast, and I haven't spoken another language in the podcast. So my goal is to give some quick explanations in Spanish, but if you don't speak Spanish, don't worry, it's a good chance for you to practice, and it will just be to tie together some of the meanings and explanations. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, today is dedicated to learning English expressions with music. So I'm going to just look at some popular songs and, give you some explanations for some of the phrases that I've heard in the songs. And if you want, you can check these out on Instagram. I posted them on Instagram. It'll be under my stories for music in August. And then also, not my stories, my highlights for music in August, and then also music in July. So you can check these out. So forgive me if I don't pronounce some of the names of the singers correctly. To be honest with you, I think it's a sign of my age, right? I'm getting old, I'm 34 now, so some of the new pop music and new singers and artists, I'm not familiar with the correct pronunciation of their name. I guess that's what happens when you get old. Anyway, we're going to start off with this song by Louis Capaldi that is called Let It Roll. And in the song, he says he's holding out for something. He's going to hold out for something. So that is a very common phrasal verb there, right? And that is a phrase that means I'm going to wait for something better, right? If I say I'm going to hold out for something, it usually means I'm going to wait until something better comes along, right? And in Spanish, maybe it would be like, voy a esperar hasta que venga algo mejor. I'm going to hold out for something. It's like passing on something and holding out for something else. So let me think of a good example here. It would be if you're at a party and there's chocolate cake and then there's ice cream cake, right? Cake that's ice cream and cake, like built together. And somebody offers you the chocolate cake, you say, no, thank you. I'm holding out for the ice cream cake. So to hold out for something is like to wait for something better, right? You don't want to waste in this case, your appetite on the chocolate cake. You want to hold out for the ice cream cake because it's something much better. So that's my silly example there for you, but that's what it means to hold out for something. And I wish I could play the song to give you an example of the song so you can relate to it more, but you'll unfortunately have to look up that song. You've probably already heard it. It's on the radio a lot here, but you'll have to look up that song because unfortunately I don't have the copyrights to it, and I don't want to get in trouble, and I don't want the FBI to break down my door and throw me in jail for a lot of years. So I'm just gonna go ahead and explain the expressions to you and quote him from the song, and you'll have to go do your homework and listen to those songs to be able to make the connections and make it come full circle. But that's good because that's how you learn. You have to, take some initiative. You have to have homework, right? You don't learn just by listening. You got to go out there and apply it a little bit. All right. So another phrase that I highlighted that was from a song was this J.P. Cooper song called Here. And the phrase was standoffish. And standoffish is something, it's an adjective, right? So it's not really an expression. But standoffish is when somebody is cold, they're not very warm, they're not very welcoming, they're standoffish, right? So they're like kind of through their body language and demeanor, kind of giving you a vibe to keep your distance. We call it standoffish, right? So in Spanish, I would say alguien que está como muy frío, pecho frío, que no está muy amable y que no te abraza, no te saluda con un abrazo ni nada. Está standoffish, como alguien que está frío. So somebody who's very cold, right? Somebody que no te da un bienvenidos caloroso. Maybe I can say, and that doesn't give you a warm welcoming. It's somebody who's standoffish. So that word was in that song, and so that is J.P. Cooper. Here is the name of the song. And then the next song was 5 Seconds of Summer by Youngblood. The name there kind of makes me laugh. Youngblood. So in that song, and this is one that I've heard on the radio several hundred times, have never really paid attention to the lyrics, but they say in that song, or he says, or the artist says, beat me at my own game. So this is a pretty common phrase, and I think, if your level's intermediate in English to advanced, you probably understand it pretty easily. But to beat someone at their own game is almost like it's similar to giving someone a taste of their own medicine. To beat someone at their own game is like if somebody's doing something, playing games with you, or in a relationship, maybe somebody's trying to play what we call hard to get, where they kind of act like they're not interested, and then you show more interest and they kind of make you suffer because they act like they're not interested. We call that playing hard to get. But then if you do the same thing to that person, we could say you're beating that person at his or her own game. You're beating them at their own game, basically. So I don't know if in Spanish I could think of an equivalent one. It's like tomar tu propio veneno, something like that, right? I think, or there's maybe literally would be like ganar a alguien en su propio juego, but básicamente es cuando estás haciendo como el mismo tratamiento, estás dando el mismo tratamiento a alguien que esa persona te está dando a usted. So you're beating them at their own game. You're giving them the same treatment or whatever, but you're even doing it better. So you're making that person probably suffer more. And in sports, we could look at it the same way. If one team is really good at doing something, and then the opposing team, the opponents, run that same play and do it even better, then they could be beating them at their own game. So that's to beat someone at his or her own game, right? All right, and now we'll move on to a Billie Eilish song that's pretty new called My Future. And in the song she says, I know better than to drive you home, I believe is what she says. Or she sings or whatever. But to know better than to do something. This is a very common phrase that we use, and it means that you know what the better decision is, or you know you should make a better decision than the decision you're making. So we'll say this a lot, like the example I gave, I believe, when I posted it in Instagram was that, parents will say to their kids when their kids are misbehaving, you know better than that. And that's a common classic phrase from a parent is, oh, you know better than that, or a teacher to a student, but they'll say, you know better than that. And it just means you know the better decisions to make, and you're not making them right now. So, you deserve your punishment, basically, because you are not making decisions, or you're making poor decisions, and you know that you should be making better decisions. So we'll say, you know better than that. And I think I didn't listen to the whole song of Billie Eilish, the My Future song, but I think what she's saying is, I know better than to drive you home, because that might lead to something else, more romance or something like that. So she shouldn't have driven him home. She should have, not given him a ride or whatever. I don't know. But that's what it means when you say, I know better than that, or you know better than that. En español sería, sabes mejor, como sabes las decisiones mejores para tomar, something like that. You know better decisions to make. All right, so moving on from that one, there's another song that's really popular right now called Supalonely, and it's basically, it means super lonely, right? But this is very common in English, especially in writing and slang. Words that end in ER, when we say them conversationally a lot of times, will end them with an sound instead of an sound. So like the word super becomes supa. I'm super tired, and it just depends. It's not like a common, or it's not like a, what am I saying, like a absolute rule, but it is very common. With a lot of words that end in ER, we will write them with like an A. So super would be supa, or I can't even think of another example right now. Like hotter would be hotta, and this is like I don't know, just the way it rolls off your tongue sometimes. Like, oh man, it's hotter out here than it was yesterday. I'm saying like it's hotter out here than it was yesterday. When I say it fast, it sounds more like hotter than hotter, right? It's hotter out here than it was yesterday. So that's an example. The ER becomes an sound. So this is Super Lonely is the name of the song, and the song is by, I think the name is Benee, I would imagine. But anyway, in this song, they use the phrase to mess things up. So I pointed it out because I know when I was learning Spanish, it was very difficult for me to talk about messing things up. I think the best verb I've found for it now is like arruinar, like to ruin something, right? But to mess things up basically means to make mistakes, right? Or to screw things up. To say screw things up is a little more vulgar. It's not like super offensive. It's not the worst word you could use, but to say mess things up is like something that kids could say and not get in trouble. And then probably when you're a teenager, you're saying stuff like screwed things up, right? So it's not like a completely offensive word. If you're a teenager, you could get away with it, but When you say to mess things up, they basically mean the same thing. So to mess things up means to make mistakes or to ruin things. For example, if I'm working on my computer and I have a bunch of programs open and I download some virus, I could say, oh no, I messed things up. Or maybe I accidentally sent an email to the wrong person. Oh no, I messed things up. Hay muchas frases en Spanish, hay muchas frases como malos que he aprendido que se puede usar en ese caso, pero es como me equivoqué, arruiné algo. But when I was learning Spanish, it was really hard for me to understand, like the verb that you have is equivocar, which is to make mistakes, basically, or to make an error. But for me, it was always difficult because I wanted to use the word mess. I wanted to find a word that translated with the word to mess. And so I would be like, oh no, lo hice sucio, like I made it dirty, or something. And people would always laugh at me and be like, that doesn't really make sense, right? Because in Spanish, you wouldn't say it like that. So, for us, you can make a mess and it's a noun, but to mess things up is to make mistakes. So it gives you an example as well, how phrasal verbs can just completely change the meaning of a noun once it becomes placed as a verb, and English is just kind of screwed up. English is messed up. And that's a good example for this. English always messes things up because it doesn't make a lot of sense and the rules are just crazy. So English is a messed up language, we could say. But anyway, that's what it means to mess things up. All right, and then the other song that I pointed out in my highlights on Instagram this last week was the song Hot Girl Bummer by Blackbear. And it sounds really cheesy and corny and lame when I say it like that. Hot Girl Bummer. But I believe that's the name of the song, unless I wrote it down wrong and it's actually Hot Girl Summer, maybe. It seems like it might make more sense. But I think what he's talking about in this song is maybe not having very good luck with girls or something. But he says to throw a tantrum, right? He says throw a tantrum. And I wanted to point that out because this was another word that I had difficulty translating or trying to use in Spanish when I was trying to tell people somebody was throwing a tantrum. So for me, I think it's a little bit difficult. And then we use the verb to throw, which also might make it not so intuitive when you're learning the language. But basically, to throw a tantrum is to have a fit, to get kind of obnoxiously upset about something. We usually talk about it in terms of when kids are misbehaving or acting obnoxious and getting upset and throwing a fit and throwing a tantrum, basically, because maybe they don't get what they want or something, right? So we'll say, oh, stop throwing a temper tantrum. We'll call it a temper tantrum. And in Spanish, I think the best word for it would be berrinches, like un chico está a los berrinches, I think you would say, right? Está a los gritos would be like another way. Un niño está a los gritos. I don't know if it's tener un berrinche or estar al berrinche. I don't know. But anyway, that is kind of what that means, to throw a tantrum. So we can talk about adults throwing a tantrum too, and it's usually to mock the adult, to make fun of the adult and kind of, point out that the adult is acting like a child, like, oh, you're throwing such a tantrum over this. Oh, you're acting like a baby. So yeah, and I believe the lyrics were this, that hot girl bummer anthem, turn it up and throw a tantrum. So yeah, I think the song has some sort of bitterness to somebody that the protagonist in the song was not successful with, in a relationship or something. And they said this is that hot girl bummer anthem, turn it up and throw a tantrum. So like turn up the song, raise the volume of the music, and throw a tantrum. Get really mad, get upset. So that's what it is. It's throwing a tantrum. You're getting upset. You're saying the heck with life. I'm upset. Nothing matters, that sort of stuff. So that's what it is to throw a tantrum, just to make a scene. We can also say to make a scene. All right, well, I believe that is it for today. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I hope it worked well with me throwing in a little bit of Spanish translations there for anybody who speaks Spanish or is working on their Spanish, and you'll get more out of this podcast. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I hope you have a great Sunday and a great week. And please give me your feedback, whether you're listening on Anchor FM, Spotify, or YouTube, or anywhere else where you get your podcasts, as they say. But please give me feedback. And you can reach me on Instagram. It's at learn.english.expressions, or the YouTube channel is Learn English with Mike. And I believe you can send me voicemails here on Anchor FM if you're listening on Anchor FM. But if not, you can always send me a message on Instagram. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you in the next podcast. Keep studying and keep learning.